Yeah, welcome to the podcast in a really nice studio. Thank you very much for coming on and talking to me and spending the time. I know obviously you've done a lot of work in ticketing and we're going to talk a lot about that. But first of all, like your current projects, what's on the agenda at the moment?
So at the moment, I'm 11 years in, I suppose, to my current project. So I'm the managing director of a company called Kaizen Ticketing. And we're basically building a ticketing system. So we've been working with football clubs for the last 11 years. And on day one, we had absolutely nothing. And we've been building a bit of software from scratch to try and sell as many tickets for as many football clubs as we can.
I think ticketing... it's become a bit of a big topic, isn't it, now, with the way that it's changed? Like for you, when you started compared to where you're at now, what are some of the differences that you've seen in ticketing and the way that clubs do it as well?
Yeah, it's come a long way in a relatively short space of time. My background's been in ticketing. It's what I've done for my whole career. So I can bore you with what it used to be like in 1996, but
I will ask. I will ask.
But certainly, like in the last 10, 11 years, we had the idea initially when we looked at, let's build a ticketing system. I started in non-league, and the reason being, to be perfectly honest, it was a bit of a test because we just felt like the clubs at that level go through everything at a club that the Premier League level does, but at a much smaller scale. And so, like with a sort of a software head on, you want to try and do things quickly and with minimal risk. And I just felt if we could find one non-league club who would let us work with them and build something and basically be a bit of a guinea pig, and I was really upfront with them about that, then we could see if we could get to a point where we could cover memberships and season ticket renewals, match day tickets, box office type operations and access control, and a bit of reporting. And so that was the goal to start with. I mean, the number of non-league clubs I spoke to just to get to the first one, like at that time, very, very few, I could probably count on two hands how many were selling online.
Yeah.
And often when you'd speak to them, you would hear things like, well, why do we need to sell online? We can't sell out. What do we need a ticketing system for? That's really changed now because I think clubs really see the value of having an audience that you can contact and speak to and keep up to date and obviously market to with more tickets, more products, merchandise, all that kind of stuff as well. So I think just commercially, clubs have got a lot more savvy. And the technology is way more accessible now for everyone.
I think it's helpful that, like you said, with the point about starting at non-league specifically, because it's quite a weird industry in that everyone does the same thing, like you said, but because you can start and learn and adapt, how did you approach that mindset of, or like more to be specific, what examples would you give of like, we did something to try and test it out and it ended up working because it was a non-league club, because we thought, okay, like, the risk is still high, but it's not on the same scale as, if you did it at Manchester United or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the whole thing. I could disappear for 7 years, build something amazing and go to Man United and say, look at this. And the first question is going to be, well, who else do you work with?
Yeah.
And when you say no one, then it's thanks, but come back when you have. So doing it this way, I just felt was a bit more of it was lower risk. It was a way that I could try and build a little bit of a set of customers and then, go from there, sort of work up through the leagues, basically. The thing that we learned really quickly, like at that non-league level in particular, is like ticketing obviously is not their biggest problem. So you've got to adapt with that. But what you learn also very quickly is just generating revenue any way that you can is like that's taken really seriously because every club at that level will always say yes to more money. So one of the things that we kind of adapted very quickly was the ability to sell merchandise. Even now there's very few systems that can sell tickets and merchandise in the same basket together. And that's something that naturally came out of our time in non-league purely because clubs wanted to be able to put as much as they could in front of their fans. So for a lot of clubs are still like that today. They'll use our system as like the place to go for anything they want to sell to the fans. So we've got clubs that are selling things like car parking and away travel, obviously merchant tickets, season tickets, memberships, and I mean anything else they can sort of dream up, we can probably deal with it.
Did you start the idea of that when you're still, I know you were at Tottenham at one point, like was it based on your experience where you saw things and gaps where maybe the consumer experience could have been a little bit better, that you realised if we put that into something, then it's just going to make everyone's life so much easier? Because the car park idea, like whenever I go to a football game, I never drive because I'm not parking anywhere.
It's impossible.
That's just not going to happen.
And even if they've got a big car park, it takes you ages to get
exactly.
out.
Exactly. So like, and that's like Swindon Town, for example. Now imagine Tottenham.
Yeah.
You know, so was that just you saw there's an opportunity there to be able to help people at least make that easier? Yeah,
I mean, so as a user of ticketing systems before I'm doing what I'm doing now, like I was probably one of like a bit of a nightmare client because I just moan. I moan now anyway. Like I don't stop moaning, but I would always, I genuinely would sit there sometimes when I worked at Tottenham and. Like I would joke with some of the people I worked with, you know, if I built a ticketing system, this is what I would do. And you kind of like have a bit of a laugh about, you know, that. But I actually did that because it's one of those things, you see the problems. I've used different systems over the years. And it's almost like, you know, if it could do a bit of this and a bit of that and you can get all the best bits together, then you might be onto something. And that just sort of naturally over time and seeing some of the same problems over and over again, you think, well, you know, if I ever do that, that would be something I'd address. Car parking specifically, I can't claim that to be like a massive, you know, huge bit of foresight and I dreamt up the future, but it's just one of those things, like as clubs saw the ability to be quite flexible, we do have some clubs that have got naturally big car parks around the ground and they saw the opportunity to upsell some parking when people are buying tickets. Yeah.
When you started, like the mentality of the clubs, was it different to, or would you say it was because of what you did in terms of we can sell more, we can make more opportunities to generate revenue, that they changed their mentality, or was it just an actual progressive shift of the industry of like, we need to make more revenue and also you've got your idea as well in the same time?
Yeah, there's a little bit of both. So, I mean, our first ever club we worked with was Kings Lynn Town.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm still indebted to them to this day because, like, it needed someone to just take a bit of a chance on us. Yeah. And, like, their chairman gets a bit of stick online. But he's actually been good as gold with us from day one. And he's always sort of been supportive. He's always recommended us. And we've done a good job for him. And so he was always of the opinion we need to generate more money any way we can, like every other club at that level. And so we just, I think, just naturally evolved in that way more than anything. I would say once clubs saw what other clubs were doing, it then starts to turn into a bit of a snowball.
Yeah.
And I even get it now. You know, we'll get a club contact us that we work with saying, oh, we've seen, you know, what they're doing. Tell us about that. Or if I go and see new clubs, what's everyone else doing that we're not doing? And you know, it's funny because clubs, in one way, they're obviously competitive on the pitch, but off the pitch, they're actually quite complementary. So if you can get them all together, all sharing these kinds of ideas, they can all win.
Yeah.
And I think clubs are starting to think that way now, where, you know, going back a few years before, it would have been quite guarded and, you know, if someone had an idea, it wouldn't be shared. Whereas, you know, obviously with social media now as well, I think clubs love to brag about the good stuff they're doing. So it's natural to sort of share it around.
What point when you're still working as part of the company, did you think now is the moment to actually do it myself? Like, I've built up so much time of, you know, working with so many different systems and organizations. What do you remember the moment when you were like, now is the time to go, or was it more of like a gradual process?
I don't know.
Oh, really?
Absolutely, yeah. So after I left Tottenham, I went to work at Ticketmaster. I worked on the London 2012 Olympics and the Euros the same year as well, and had started to work on the Commonwealth Games, which was a couple of years after. And in that time, I learned how to be a product manager. So I kind of really, before that, spent all my time in box offices and being quite operational at stadiums. And this was the first experience I had in terms of like how the technology supports all of that. And I learned a lot from tournaments like that, they say like you kind of learn 8 years worth of stuff in a 3 or 4 year condensed period. It's so true because it's just non-stop. So I picked up a lot of knowledge around those sort of tournaments really, and learning to be a product manager, you kind of start to think about things like it's your little business, like your product is your business essentially, and you start thinking about prioritizing what features you're going to build, what problems it solves, how it makes money, all of that stuff. So when I started to learn to think that way, it really opened my eyes and made me think, actually, the whole jokey thing of if I ever build a system, this is actually quite possible. That was the first bit. And then after there, I left Ticketmaster. I worked for a company called Outbox, which is now Axis, which do the O2 and Wembley Arena. And I worked there for, I think it was about 6 or 9 months, doing a project to take their system and make it work in Scandinavia. And I had a great boss, one of the probably, well, I'm going to say the best boss because other people get upset, but he was a really good guy. And he basically said to me in my interview, what do you want to do in 5 years? And without thinking, I blurted out, start a ticketing company. I was like, oh man, that's absolutely
that's cancelled you for the role. Yeah.
But I got a call back.
Yeah, nice.
And then on my first day, he said to me, right, so you said you want to start a ticketing company one day. It's like, yeah. He took me to lunch. He was like, so tomorrow you're going to Stockholm. This is the plan. We're launching in 6 weeks. We don't have any staff. We don't have an office. We have got a launch date and we've got a system. We don't know if it's going to work in Sweden or not yet. You need to go and figure it out. That's the plane ticket. Off you go. Yeah. And so I went and I was back and forth every week for like 6-8 weeks in the end. And I had to. It's basically like a little scene
like
out of the Apprentice.
Yeah.
But I did it. Like, I had to figure out. We did a deal with one of the venue where we were launching to take some space off them for some desk space. Hired some staff, got local staff in, and learned a little bit about Swedish VAT and employment law and how that all worked in the crash course. And launched the system. And we obviously had gaps because it's a North American system trying to work in Scandinavia, currencies, languages, all of that sort of good stuff. So that was like the point where I felt if you can do that there, you can absolutely do it here. Yeah. And then after that project launched, it went well. Everything was kind of running. The plan originally was then to do the same in another country, but then that got delayed. And so, he said it's going to be a bit quiet for a few months, but this is the next plan. And I just thought, you know what, I could sit around for a few months, or actually I could maybe just keep the momentum going and like, that's what I did. So I was gutted to leave him because I learnt loads of good stuff about just how to start a business. It was a small company at the time. I think I was like the 19th or 20th in, so it's still pretty small. So I got to learn directly from him, which is like the best education you can get.
Like having a good boss, did that teach you how to like lead your own team? Because I imagine, or I'm going to assume that you got quite a few of your business skills and how to work with people from having someone who actually just, by the sounds of it, believed in your ability and believed in your vision to go right. That's quite a big project. So I'm sure for him he was like, he must have trusted you. So
he did say to me that he had planned to come out every week to Sweden and kind of micromanage it a bit. And in the end, I think he came out twice. Like one of them was on the launch day, which he kind of needs to be there for. So like that in itself was like a bit of an endorsement. I felt great about that because he didn't need to worry about me. So that in itself is a high praise. But I've had some great bosses like over the years, all kind of different styles. Like when I first started at Wembley, that was my first job, Wembley Stadium, and my boss there, like he taught me like the operational side of a stadium and like how to deal with problems on the fly on a match day. People turn up and there's a row of seats missing. What do we do? And like just to keep your head and work. You'll always figure it out. Nothing's ever sold out. As much as people will tell you it's never sold out. So he kind of taught me some of those tricks. And right through to Tottenham, my mate Ian Murphy's still the head of ticketing there now. He was good as gold with me, and we'd worked together before at the FA as well. And so he was again someone who he just let me get on with it. And so I kind of was able to learn a little bit, and he was there to step in when he needed to. But so I think if you have a boss that really believes in you, gives you a little bit of space to go and do things and make your own mistakes is important.
Yeah.
I'll try and do that with our team now. Like, I think, if you were going to criticise me, you'd probably say that I am too hands-off sometimes. But I also believe in letting people go and try some stuff and make a few mistakes. And if I see it going really bad, I'll step in. But sometimes it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Because that's how you learn.
Yeah. Do you remember any mistakes you've made at any point?
Loads.
Yeah. But, because it's one thing to make a mistake, I suppose, but then, like, how did you also bounce back? And did people give you the opportunity to bounce back?
Yeah. I mean, I think ticketing's hard because if you make a mistake, depending on what you're ticketing, it can very quickly become headline news.
Yeah.
And you find yourself in the papers. I always joke about a bit to say, like, if you're seriously in ticketing and you've not been involved in something that's been labelled like a shambles, a disgrace, like, then you haven't really been in ticketing, because it can go wrong so easily. Like, and that's the brutal truth of it. And everybody at some point will always do something that has repercussions. The key to it is how quickly you can recover it, and fix that mistake. Because ultimately, you're dealing with people who have paid money to go and watch something that they really care about, and you can't overlook that. So, I mean, from all the kinds of mistakes I've ever made, you always learn something from it. You always learn about sort of having that spare capacity for the unknown things that will crop up, the last minute guests that you can't say no to, players, requests, families, wives, all the usual stuff that everyone forgets to tell you until the last minute, sponsors that are paying a lot of money and spring something on you. You need to be able to be in a position where you can say yes to all of those things, and not offend people. So it's a tough gig, really tough gig.
Do you let's talk about that point in terms of people asking for tickets. Like, how does that actually work? Is it through the club that people will ask? Because I'm trying to think how to word this, because you're at different clubs, right? So let's say the FA, for example, because I think, did you work around like some of the FA Cups and stuff like that? So I'm sure you must have had players, families, or asking for tickets. Did that come through the clubs?
It goes through the clubs, yes. The way that things like the FA Cup final will work is you've got obviously your stadium capacity for the final. You've got an allocation to what they call the football family, which is all of your county FAs, all the clubs that took part, people associated with the FA, councillors, that kind of thing. And then you've got the two allocations for the clubs themselves, of course, as well. So each club will have their allocation, and they need to, from that, deal with their supporters, players' requests, sponsors. And there's always been the argument, how many tickets the clubs get versus the FA and all of the people associated, and you can make arguments either way, really. So, I mean, when I was at the FA, my job was England home games and FA Cup, FA Trophy and FA Vase finals. That's what I looked after. So I was quite lucky with the England games. It was at the time Wembley was getting rebuilt, so we were on the road, and it's great because you get to learn from all of these other ticketing people and all these new venues to see how they work. But with the FA Cup final, like that's the flagship one. You can't let it go wrong on those. And so for something like that, it wouldn't necessarily be players' families, because that would be the clubs that would take care of it. But you would get all kinds of, celebrity supporters that come out of the woodwork, or, members of parliament that happen to be a Liverpool fan. And you kind of, it's your problem to deal with. You've got to be able to accommodate where you can. So there's always a big jigsaw puzzle in terms of like that sort of directors area and who sat where and hospitality, and then seats just in the regular bowl as well.
What role taught you the most about the real intensity of working in the football industry out of all of them that you've ever done?
I think I was really lucky, and I wouldn't change a thing if I could do it again, because I started at like ground zero. My first job was in the call centre at Wembley Stadium. So you're talking to people on the phone who are phoning up to buy tickets, and you get all kinds of questions thrown at you. And then on top of that, on a match day, if you were working there, you could work match days as well. So sometimes you would be at a box office, and you learn to grow up really quickly. You get the lie detector just like goes up for, because you get, you know, people turning up with, oh, I bought a ticket and I've lost it, really, or I've, you know, my mate's gone in already and he's got the tickets, and all the try-on stories, and you learn so quickly how to, not interrogate's the wrong word, but press someone for an answer and see if they crack. That's interrogation. But you learn those skills, like, you know, and I learned that probably by the time I was 18, 19, and I could be quite confident with it. And I've never lost that. And I will absolutely speak up.
People can't lie to you in any walk of
if
life.
someone is trying it on, I will absolutely press them, or I will call them out before, if they're trying to turn around. I'm like, listen, I know what you're doing. Let's just be honest. I appreciate honesty.
Yeah. I mean, that must be, because football fans are so, I don't know what the word is, like, but they love their team so much that they'll literally do, in some cases, anything to get and go and watch, right?
Totally. Like, that's it. You know, you see the best and worst of it. For me personally, it's my experience with England fans abroad. You see the most passionate fans, and you see some of the not so great sides of fans as well. But you know, things like tournaments, and so probably the most memorable one. You always, in a tournament, when you get to the knockout stage, you always seem to find yourself in a porter cabin in the middle of a car park somewhere, surrounded by queues of people to come and get tickets for whatever the game is. Because it's all last minute. Obviously, no one knows where you play until you qualify. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's changed obviously now with digital ticketing, but you know, going back a few years, it was just like a massive collection operation over a couple of days. Yeah. And that's where you basically get to test your skills in terms of like who's lying and who's not. You start off from the day with a pile of tickets there, and it's going to keep going down, and the queue is kind of getting shorter, and it's that, like, I don't know, you know, you get to like the last hour, I think the queue versus the pile, it's touch and go. But that's where you get all the try-ons as well. So yeah, it keeps you on your toes. Yeah.
Was that Euro?
That's 2004.
Oh, was that
Portugal?
Portugal, right. Was that the first tournament you did?
It would have been, yeah. So there was the World Cup in 2002, which I didn't travel to, but I was involved in sort of some of the prep for that, basically. And then there was just like, because obviously the distance, there was a team that went from the FA and just sort of stayed with Portugal, because it was obviously a bit closer. We could sort of go out back and forth, and I didn't go out until we got out of the group stages, and then very quickly back again after getting knocked out. But yeah, that would have been the first, because before that I wouldn't have been involved in any of the tournaments at all. It was like Wembley really at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite an experience, because I imagine it's so different, particularly at that time when England were on the road, like you said, they were away. So it's not, let's say, the same type of people, because it's not the same venue. Did you find there were differences between the mentality of like when England play here, for example, or when England play, I remember they were in Sunderland at one point.
Yeah.
You know, did you find that people interacted a bit differently?
Definitely. It was like, for me, I would say it was the best time to be involved, because you had the team that was like the kind of golden generation, as they were labelled. Yeah. And you had this interest in that team, but we were bringing games to different parts of the country, and for so many people, because Wembley was quite inaccessible either through price or just location, it was probably an opportunity for a lot of people to see the England team. They hadn't seen them before, or hadn't seen them for many years. And so when England came to town, and we did like Newcastle a couple of times, Villa Park a few times, Derby, Leicester, Sunderland, like you say, did a lot in the end in Manchester, because in the end of the capacity, it was, the demand was there, and that was the biggest stadium at the time. Southampton as well, so Ipswich, all these places.
Awesome.
So you kind of you're coming to all of these towns and cities with a big product that everybody wants to get involved in. It was fantastic, and selfishly as a ticketing geek, I got to work with all these different ticket office managers at all these clubs to just see how they approach the same problem. Yeah. So it's the best of kind of all the worlds wrapped into one.
Do you think it would be a good idea if England did something similar again, like a tour of the UK?
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be great. I don't think it would ever happen, because Wembley's expensive. And it's got to be paid for. Yeah. But in the interest just of like fans and probably atmosphere, being honest as well. You know, I think we had some of the best atmospheres at those games because, again, it was just different for everyone. So people were genuinely excited that the England team were there and they got a chance to, you know, maybe see some of those superstars.
Yeah. Did it change, like, what was the experience like going from internationally with England to Tottenham? What was the difference between the way that ticketing was done?
It's like drinking from a fire hose. Seriously, man. Like, no one could prepare me for it. So I'll be at the FA and think, oh, we've got 6 games this year. Oh, it's going to be difficult, this. Like, you know, we've got a couple of home qualifiers, big friendly against, you know, a big team. And then you go to Spurs, and I swear to God, I felt so bad that we'd inflicted our games on all of these ticket office managers on the road when they're trying to do this every week as well. And you just think, oh my, how do you do this? It was properly a baptism of fire. So I mentioned Ian. Ian, when we worked at the FA, he did all the away games and all the tournaments. Yeah. He was like the lead for that. So he would be travelling to all of the away qualifying games. And then wherever the tournament was, he would be the first to go with the playing party. And then we'd go and support as and when needed, depending on how far we got into the competition. So he went across to Spurs first, and he's a Spurs fan too.
Oh, that's good.
And so he was there, and I stayed in touch with him a little bit. And he's like, oh yeah, it's quite busy, but quite busy.
I can imagine.
And so about 3 or 4 months after I joined him there, and I just couldn't comprehend like the intensity of like. Because at that time, Spurs had just got back into Europe as well. So they were playing Europa League games, so it was Thursdays, then Sundays, and then obviously with the TV games, you know, sometimes you might be on 4 o'clock on a Sunday or a 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
We rarely had Saturday afternoons because of Europe. And then you might get a Tuesday night if it's not a European week. And you don't know whether you're coming or going. But then season ticket renewals happen. And that's when it really gets real, because you all of a sudden, and quite naively, I thought the same until I started working at a club. You think, okay, well the season's done now, so a few weeks off, recuperate, let's get ready for the next. No, it goes crazy.
Yeah,
and that's like, as you know, I now know very well, it's your busiest time of year by a long way. But I also learned if you get that bit right, your season is absolutely straightforward. It's a breeze. But if you get it wrong, then all of those problems and mistakes carry through the whole season, and the season just becomes a bit of a slog.
Are there any seasons you remember where you did get it wrong?
Yeah, the first one.
Oh no, that's sort of the worst.
First one where we switched ticketing systems, and it was a better system, but the switch happened so late. Trying to get everybody trained and confident on it. We were a team of, I think, 12 to 14 at that point, and it was like having 14 new staff because everyone's just like, what do we do? How did you do this? And things that you used to do with your eyes closed, you're now having to relearn. Yeah. So, that first season, we made a complete hash of renewals, if I'm being really frank, to the point where in the end, there was sort of a little mini crew of like 4, 6 of us that were staying late a couple of times, pulling like overnighters to get stuff done. It was back in the day before digital mobile tickets, so you get all these like voucher books into wallets and trying to match up names of people, and you just had this huge room of like season ticket wallets waiting to be collected, and just trying to get that done. And my one driving like I've used the term motivation lightly for the team is I think we were our first game, opening game of the season, we were on telly. I think it was a Tuesday night, and I'm pretty sure we were like home to Everton. And I used to keep saying, there is absolutely no way we can be on TV and the stadium is half empty because everyone's still trying to pick up their season tickets. We've got to get it done. Yeah. And that was like the thing. We just go in, and we got there in the end. Like I still stay in touch with a few of the guys that we bonded a lot over that summer. We refer to it as that summer. Yeah. It's just like I would never wish it on anyone, and I hope to never ever have one of those again. But it's also one of those experiences that gives you a lot of good experience to help, like what we do now, and help other clubs to avoid some of those things that we sort of stumbled across ourselves.
I guess I didn't even think about the fact that it was all paper before, so that was probably, I mean,
it slows the whole thing down.
Yeah.
I mean, now you can literally renew everybody online. This is, people were coming to the ticket office with forms, often with cash, and then having to come back 3 or 4 weeks later to collect the ticket after it had been processed. So it's just so long-winded. So I'm just like so grateful to be in an era where that's shifted along, and I can be like one of the older ones now going, yeah, I remember, and it's a bit different. So I'm probably more grateful than most. Just press the button. Oh, everyone's got their ticket now, and it's all good.
I always think, like, particularly for the League Two and League Championship clubs who play, 46 games in the league, plus the cup games, plus if you get to the playoffs, like, I mean, that must have been so difficult that now it's so much more simpler. I think most teams now, isn't it, have converted to e-tickets, if not all of them.
Yeah, there's still 1 or 2 lingering.
Yeah.
But for the most part now, I think that's where we've been quite lucky going into some of the EFL clubs where they haven't been quite as quick to adopt. And then with what we do, they have seen such a huge difference. Like their first renewals quite often is moving from like that scenario of the paper-based renewal.
Yeah.
The other thing that's obviously worse at that level is you don't have a ticket office of as many people. So it's like, if you're lucky, 2 or 3, sometimes just 1, having to deal with that manual element of it. It's not as many season tickets, but still one person trying to process, 3,000 season tickets, like that's a big ask.
Yeah.
So if you can get people renewing online, obviously that doesn't become your problem. If you can fulfill the ticket digitally, it's your job to oversee it as opposed to actually fulfill it. So it's huge, big difference.
Have you ever tried to get a ticket through? I know Ticketmaster's the big one, because I've even used it sometimes. Like when you use a ticket, first of all, have you actually got a ticket through Ticketmaster, like for anything ever before? Yeah. So like when you do that, do you actually learn from? Because like to me, it's just you buy the ticket, you get your ticket. They might have a tax involved as well, and then you move on. But for you, like, is it almost like a learning experience of they might have something here that you might just keep in mind?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, always. And I'd even go as far as to say some of the best ideas aren't actually when you're buying tickets. It's when you're maybe, buying something online in I don't know, you can use Amazon as an example, or, registering for something through Apple.
Yeah.
There's so many, I've seen and rehashed so many ideas.
Yeah.
From there was one when we were first building the ticketing system, from is it Coursera? Like the way that they displayed stuff, and I was like, that's amazing. We should do that.
Yeah.
And like and that's kind of part of like when I talked about learning to be a product manager. You learn to just look for ideas like that, and ideas are anywhere you can re-implement them. And I'd even go as far as to say, if you're just looking at other ticketing systems for ideas, you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah.
Because that's not where you're going to make the next leap onto whatever the thing is that's breakthrough. It's looking around offline and online.
Yeah, that's fair. We will wrap up for a quick break, like 10 minutes.
Cool.
I'm going to clap. That was really good.
Cool.
Really good.
Good
So
stuff.
like 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
How did you find it?
It's great. Yeah, it's just like having a chit chat. It's all good.
I mean, that Stockholm story is crazy. That's really cool, though, that you went.
Yeah. It was fantastic. I mean, it was such a. You couldn't pay enough for an education.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
That was the whole and you just think, how the hell am I going to do this? And
Yeah.
you just think, okay, well, write a list, work out what you got to do, and tick them off.
Yeah, fair. No, that's good. No, really good. That was a really good story, and I hope the questions are like okay. It's not really a question. It's just
it's fine. I was about to tell you another. I'll tell you now. But about mistakes and stuff like that. But I mean, so my worst ever mistake when I worked at Spurs was I was printing tickets for the North London derby.
Oh no!
And it was at our place, printing Arsenal's allocation. And during that day, I'd also printed, I think we were playing Portsmouth or something like that as well, and I was printing their tickets. You know how clubs do categories of matches? So I basically printed the wrong price on the Arsenal tickets, and obviously Portsmouth was like a category B or a C.
Yeah,
So
it's a bit
the
cheaper.
Arsenal tickets were cheaper than they should have been. We boxed them up and shipped them off to Arsenal. Arsenal didn't realise, and they probably wouldn't have.
Sell
And so
anyways, yeah.
They started selling, and then it's like, oh shit! Their ticket office manager's like, "Have you put your prices down?" I'm like, no. And yeah, so I mean, that got into the Daily Mail.
No way!
Like, oh my god!
Wow.
It was a Sunday morning, and my mate called me and was like, "So, if you go and buy a Daily Mail, page 50, whatever." Like, okay.
Yeah.
And really, it's just like, I can't remember what it was called. There's I'll send you the link to the online version as well, man. But it's like ticketing shambles, blah blah. It's like, fuck. But we had to like try and recover the money.
Yeah.
To be fair to Arsenal, they emailed all of their supporters that had bought and said, "There's been an error. Here's a link to pay the £10 difference or something." And most of them, in fairness,
Really?
they did pay.
Wow.
But Arsenal had to sort of strong arm them a bit and say, like, if you don't, you're
can't
not going to any more away games.
Okay,
So,
fair, yeah.
And then some of them they had for hospitality, which they hadn't sold yet, so they could sort that out. And in the end, I think we recovered all bar $2,500 or something. And so
Okay.
I said to Ian, like, look, I'll pay $2,500, take out my wage for next year, just to like make it. They wouldn't, but I just felt it's like that's the worst mistake I've made in my whole career, I think.
Thing is, you make a mistake like that, and because you're doing it for a public Premier League club.
Yeah.
So
about as bad as you can
that's
get.
quite a normal mistake that anyone else might have made in their office, but they don't work for. Oh, that's really bad.
Yeah. So that's like the implications.
Yeah,
isn't it? Like,
yeah.
You've always got to be. And we try as much as possible, at least, to be like, if you're doing something, check it again, get someone else to check it, because it's a good habit to get into. But also, if it's a slow news day, people will take stuff like that. Absolutely cook you with it. So,
kind of like I just wanted to carry on that point we were speaking about in terms of the opportunities that we like. Do you see the differences that you see between, I guess, when you started in the industry compared to like now?
Yeah.
The mentality of the game is the industry in general has changed. Like, what are some of the ways that you've seen those industry changes?
It's a bit of a cliche, but it's a business.
Yeah.
It really is a business. And I think in most cases that's a better thing. I think if you can manage that, but still from a fan's perspective keep that connection with the fans, then you've nailed it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, we see it particularly with clubs like National League, League 1 and 2 as well. Like, they're all very much like community hubs through the week.
Yeah.
And you see it, when matches aren't on, people like to go there to, sometimes people are just lonely at home on their own and they want to drop in for a cup of tea or go and have a chat with someone in the ticket office about the game last night. And that's a really important part of the job of the club in its community. So keeping that element, but running and being more business-like, using the database you've got to connect with your fans, keeping them up to date. Social media is so important. Coming across professionally, even if you're not professional as in status as a club. I think there's really there's no excuses because it's accessible to anyone. Yeah.
Do you think that your background, like before you started working in football, so you obviously played, and then do you just count on some of those experiences, knowing the industry, knowing how football works, knowing how football fans work? How relevant is that to what you're doing right now?
I think it's, in one respect, it's almost full circle, and in another respect, it's not relevant at all. So if I explain what I mean, I think understanding, to get us started with Kaizen and understanding non-league, that was really helpful because I'd been around non-league a fair bit. I knew some of the challenges around, clubs just needing volunteers to run, and everything's hard. That money is not. There's not a big pot of money to do everything you want. So you got to be quite resourceful, and that allowed me to approach the clubs that we were talking to with a bit of empathy, I suppose, more than anything. But I sometimes think, for football to progress and for it to evolve, it's actually quite good for people with no background in it to look at it with a bit more of an objective view as well. And it's not to say that everything that they say is going to be right, but sometimes football can get kind of caught up in itself. And it's like, well, that's how we've done it for the respect tradition. And obviously you respect tradition, but the world also moves forward as well. And so there has to be that balance of moving with the times, but also keeping the traditions that matter because they're important to the fans or people at the club.
Is it really interesting you said that? Because like a lot of the guests that not a lot of them, but some of the guests that I've spoken to have come from outside of the industry into the industry, and then they just say something that completely like I wouldn't think of at all, and I've watched football for years, and so it's quite interesting that, and I think more clubs, or not clubs, but organisations in general are hiring now from outside the industry, and then you have people coming in rather than like staying in the circle. So, I mean, I guess fresh perspectives, like you said, it's quite helpful, isn't it, to see that okay, someone who doesn't know the industry can just see it from that objective view, whereas football fan, like we are all biased and have that loyalty because you have a natural bias to something about the game that you love.
Yeah, it's an emotional business.
Yeah,
that's the thing, and it's one of the few industries where what you do on a Monday morning is going to be impacted by what happened on the Saturday or Sunday before, and that will affect people's moods that you work with, the people that you speak to who may be people you're trying to serve. That is all dependent on the results, and that's quite unique. I think if you've got people coming from outside, like there's a balance there as well, because sometimes people don't understand the history or traditions of certain things, so giving them a chance to kind of understand that is important. And it's, not everything that they say is going to be right either. So it's a real difficult balance.
As an entrepreneur, would you be more likely when you look at someone to hire them if they didn't come from within football?
I think it depends on the stage of your business. So where we are right now, we actually have hired people from football clubs because that's a really important stage that we're at, and being able to talk to the clubs that we're talking to, knowing that there are good people supporting what we do, it gives them a sense of confidence. I think as we get a little bit bigger and we might need to start looking at fresh ideas or different ways of doing things, maybe from the technology side as well, I think that's probably where you can actually get quite a bang for your buck, if you like, where someone who we've got, like a developer who's come from the insurance industry, obviously nothing to do with selling tickets, but there's still kind of that high load, key transaction type work that needs to be done. So that's like, an example where I wouldn't necessarily have to say we've got to hire engineers who have worked on ticketing systems. I think that would be a pretty bad move. But having technical people that have solved lots of different interesting technical challenges, that's important. So, we've got someone that we work with who has managed like government websites, so super high volumes of people hitting it. That's going to happen when you've got big tickets going on sale. So there's lots of things that you can bring from other industries in that respect, but I think it depends on where you are in the growth of your company, but in terms of looking for the right person. But for me, always it comes down to like someone who's got the right attitude first. Like that, regardless if you've got industry experience or not, the attitude and like being able to show that you're someone prepared to muck in when you're a small company is super important.
Yeah, I mean, particularly as well, when you look at when you started the company, I mean, there's been the transition from paper tickets to digital tickets, there's been a COVID lockdown, there's been AI now, technology has changed, the internet's got massive, social media, all these different things. So when you're considering all of the above, like in a particular industry change, is it, like you said, sometimes you do have to look at the person rather than their experience. Maybe someone who's changed, who's good at adapting. Like, how do you manage such a change in, and so particularly such a fast change as well in just so many different aspects?
Yeah, I think to start with, the first thing that you've got to look at is yourself. So you have to learn, adapt, change, be prepared to innovate, be prepared to look at new technologies you don't have to jump on everything as soon as it's out and new, but you also need to be aware of what is possible and what's coming. And I think if you don't change your mindset as your company is growing and as the world around you is changing, you're going to get left behind. That's like the harsh reality of it. You know, if I go back to when I was last in a box office working at a football club, it was only clubs in the Premier League that would want things like ticket resale platforms. Now we've got clubs in League One talking about resale. Like, everything shifts along.
Yeah.
And so things that were only sort of for the top tier 10, 15 years ago is now making its way through the leagues. And that's just the way the world is, because things are more accessible. So yeah, I think you have to be prepared to like innovate and move with the times yourself. But then, you know, there's nothing wrong with hiring specialists as well, or even if it's not full-time people you're hiring, but getting specialist advice, you know, having an expert in a certain field do some work with you for a bit. I'm a big fan of, like, if I can find someone who's done what I've already done or has been down the path I'm trying to get to, sit down with them, learn as much as you can, talk to them, just take as much as they're prepared to share, because you can take as much information as you want. You don't have to do everything that they tell you, but listening it's never going to hurt you, is it?
Yeah. Have you always been a good learner?
Don't know. I was a bit disruptive in school. I think I've got better at learning from having my own business.
Yeah.
I think that's because, to the last point, you just have to, like, I had no idea how to do bookkeeping till I had a business. I had no idea how VAT worked. I had no idea how to sell, you know, until I had to. So yeah, I've had to learn a lot from just developing myself to try and build a company. I've always been interested in learning new skills. Like, I do like to challenge myself a little bit. And I'm one of those people that if I get my head into, like, I want to learn something, I will get obsessed with it until I can master it, and I get really angry at myself until I'm all right at it. So yeah, I like that aspect of it. But academically at school, I was pretty average.
No, that's good, because I mean, I was going to say, I suppose, like, how when you start a business, particularly in the beginning, it's one of them. It's quite was it a lonely journey? That's right. Was it lonely?
Yeah.
Was it hard? Because, you know, you're coming through all these new things that I know you're experienced in ticketing, but that's your product. And you've got a lot of other things to run.
And on day one, you don't have a product.
Yeah.
You've got no customers, and you need to figure out a plan to get both. So yeah, it's tough. I mean, so like, it was 2014 we started Kaizen off. And so I had that moment of, like, right, now's the time, we're going to do it. And I went and spoke to my wife and said, look, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you reckon? And she said, well, that sounds all right, but I want another baby. It's like, brilliant. Timing's fantastic. So I was like, well, yeah, you know, I really want to start this business. And, you know, we kind of went back and forth on it and had a chat. And in the end, we just sort of, like, almost not in unison, but landed at the same point of, let's just do both.
Yeah.
Just go for it,
yeah.
Right, and see what happens. That's what we did. So that was tough, because we've already had one. I've got a stepson as well, and then the third one. That's there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
House is always noisy, and you're trying to then get something started off the ground where, you know, people just really, not many people want to go first. And it takes a special kind of someone to go first, and you've got to try and find that someone who's going to go first. And that's, like, probably the first 3 years of the business. That was my job day to day, is to figure out, like, what is it that people actually want? What could we do? What could we offer? Who would be the person that could, like, help us to get there? And it was just trying to figure all of that out. Yeah.
At what point did you think to yourself, okay, now I know what I'm doing? Or are you still trying to get to that point?
I think I'm still trying to get. I guess the level of, like, or the task in terms of what are you doing is always different. So if I was to compare what I'm doing now to what I was doing in year 2, like, if I had to start another business tomorrow, I could probably get to where I am now in maybe 3 years, because I've gone the long route on so many things because it's the first time I've been doing things.
Yeah.
You know, for next time, you don't need to worry about that, or you need to think more about this, or by doing these things sooner, you'll get more output, whatever it might be. So I think I'm always in a state of like trying to learn the next thing. Like I speak to people who are business owners that are doing better than where I'm at, because I want to know what kinds of things are bothering them. And like, you know, you talk to them, and sometimes the things that my challenges are, you just like, not a problem, is it? Like, it's a really sobering kind of. You kind of need that, because I think, you know, you can learn a lot from people that are a few steps ahead of you. So absolutely, just be humble, and take it, and go and learn.
Do you think that football is like a really difficult industry to do business in, or is it actually an advantage because of its uniqueness?
No, I think it's really hard. I'm saying that having not started a company in another industry. So, you know, from my experience of what we've done so far, I think it's hard. I think the reason why I say it's hard is because you find that it can be a bit of a closed shop. So if you're not necessarily in with the right crowd, getting in can be quite tough. And I've heard that from people just trying to get in to work at a club, or, you know, just get involved in some way. I think when it comes to things like ticketing, I think the respect for ticketing has changed a little bit in the last maybe 3-4 years. But before that, it was always seen as a bit of a, like, well, you know, they just sell tickets. I mean, it's not that important. But at a lot of clubs, like, that's a major source of your revenue. But also at a lot of clubs, your ticket office is often like a little dingy room locked away that no one ever goes into. And it doesn't marry up with the revenue that it produces at a club to maybe, I would say, like the importance that's placed on staffing, the right kind of training for people doing it. I think there's a real gap there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, certainly from my perspective as a consumer of tickets, because you buy tickets, there's more of a conversation now. And I mean, that's obviously good for you, because I'm sure as someone who's worked in it for a long time, you go, okay, at least people realize now that this is a very important topic. But I suppose it's hard when, like, the clubs themselves maybe for a long time didn't realize that this is so important. Like, this is a massive thing. But like you said, they're going to stick you out, or even some clubs, they'll just hand them out on the day, and you still rock up. So I suppose it's the mentality of the whole industry is really important, to giving respect to such an important element of people, consumers, clubs, revenue, everything. It's massive. Yeah,
I think clubs now understand that if you do a little bit of work ahead of match day, there's so much more to be gained. So rather than just waiting to see who turns up and pays you cash on the turnstile, putting a little bit of effort into social media campaigns, a bit of marketing, maybe even some advertising, even if it's sticking posters up around your local area, letting people know that the football club exists is the first step. And just by doing those kinds of things, you will see an impact. And people, you hear it so often, like since we've been working with non-league clubs, people will always say, oh yeah, you know, my local non-league club, insert club here, like, oh, I've been meaning to go and see them for ages. Like, oh, do you ever get to see them? No, I just never got round to it. Like, if you just were a little bit more in their face and reminding them, maybe they would get round to it. Maybe they would say, actually, you know what? I see this poster I walk past every day. Let me just scan the QR code and buy a ticket. And, you know, do you know what I mean? And little things like that, where everyone's got the best of intentions, but life gets in the way. And it's difficult, you know, because clubs of a certain size are run by people with day jobs doing other stuff as well. So that's where, you know, I think we've been able to help a lot with Kaizen, where we've kind of given them a platform that they can push out online and give people an opportunity to you know, commit and go to a game.
Yeah. Has there always been, because I think it's becoming more of a thing now where, like, football games are actually also networking events, right? So if you take your clients there, or potential clients even. Has that always been a thing?
I think so. I think there's like levels to it.
Okay.
So I think depending on, I suppose, the type of business and the nature of that relationship, you know, sometimes it's just a more casual, I'll bring someone to the game and we'll sit in the regular seats and have some beers before and after, and it's, you know, just a bit of a day out, through to like the high level hospitality. And I mean, if you go to like the Spurs Stadium now, it's a private members club. It's like, it's the next level, isn't it?
Oh my God.
But yeah, I think that's always been a thing. It's always, football matches are a social occasion. Like, you know, you have people bringing, you know, potential clients and customers, like you say, but you also have people that have got like their football mates.
Yeah.
Like, you know, someone that's like sat with a group of people and he doesn't know their names, but he's sat with them for the last 3 seasons. And sees them every Saturday. They all exchange pleasantries and don't see each other till the next one. Like, that's the nature of people coming together and watching football and getting behind a team. And that's the, you know, that's the important thing that you need to keep.
Yeah. How do you, literally that last point about keeping that and holding on to that, how do you incorporate that, or how do you encourage maybe clubs to incorporate that through what you guys are doing at the moment?
Yeah. So there's a few things that we do. Obviously, like the real obvious one is like knowing who's coming into the stadium as a starting point. Depends on whether like the club we're dealing with is sort of seated, standing, a mixture of the two. Features that we have things like friends with family, where people can, you know, connect and manage each other's accounts if they travel to away games together and that kind of thing. I think the challenge is always when clubs move stadiums. And we've talked about that a lot. I mean, even when I worked at Spurs, they were talking about a new stadium that long ago, and like keeping the atmosphere of certain stands when you move, or like when we've done cup finals before, you know, trying to mimic like the South Lower at White Hart Lane in Wembley Stadium for a cup final. It's quite tough, and obviously some people don't want to sit in the same seats because it's a cup final, so they want to have a big day out and spend on a better seat. But I think things like that, that's the challenge more so. You know, when you've got something that works, then if you end up moving to another venue, try to keep that. That's a tough thing to do.
That's really interesting. I mean, do you think it's, I know Manchester City are doing it because I work there, but like renovation is probably a better mix because there's so many complaints, Tottenham, Arsenal when they moved, and some fans as well, like they're so against the idea of moving stadium because you lose the atmosphere. Like how, and obviously I know lower teams as well, it's a similar case. So like, do you think maybe a renovation is not a better solution, but you kind of get the best of both worlds? If you're going to do anything, maybe it's renovate what you've currently got.
I think it's case by case.
Okay.
I think in some cases, clubs have really benefited from a brand new stadium. You know, depending on how bad the old one was, and you know, because ultimately, like, to make the club successful, the stadium has to be a place people enjoy coming to. And even if you're getting beaten, you know, week in, week out, being able to sit under cover and, you know, have a comfortable-ish experience and get served at half time and get to the toilet when you need to. Like, it sounds really basic and simple, but that's going to, you know, deter me coming back if we're getting, it's a bit fair weather, but that happens. Like, you know, you see in some cases attendances will decline when the team aren't performing particularly well. Equally, you've got some clubs where the fans will just keep coming back week after week, even if they're bottom of the league and it's not going so well, because of either the stadium facilities, the atmosphere. It's an enjoyable place to come. And I think that's what clubs are doing a really good job at now, is working on making their stadium an enjoyable place for, you know, other, not just your hardcore, like die-hard type fans, but for families, for first-time visitors, and all of these different groups now that they understand that the fan base is wider, and being as accommodating to that as they can. Yeah,
I think I've been to some really nice non-league grounds really recently, or like lower tiered grounds. Yeah, and I'm just amazed at how, I don't know, like 10 years ago, not even 10 years ago, but in, you know, some grounds that you look at them and you go, it has that old feel, but it's not been done up. And then other clubs, it's so modern, but they're lower down. And I mean, that must be interesting. Do you, like, with your clients that you're working with, is it a mix where you have both, and how do you sell to different audiences, but because their grounds are completely different, their experiences will be different?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we start working with a club, we spend a fair bit of time just trying to figure out what they're actually trying to do. And in some cases, like if we can't help them to do what they're trying to do, then they're not the right kind of club. We can't help them. So, if we have to be aligned on that to start with. You have to kind of work with what you've got in terms of the ground and making that experience as good as it can be. But you're right, there's so many clubs like at that national league level, that I guess ex-EFL clubs as well, clubs coming the opposite way up, on the up, and they've had people with a bit of money take over the club and pump money into it. I think there's, up until fairly recently, there's been a bit of a stigma, not even a stigma, but just like a misinformation about non-league, and people think it's just dilapidated grounds and players that are a bit overweight, and like most of well, I think all of the National League bar 1 or 2 clubs now are full-time. The players are more athletic than professionals 20 years ago. They're in much better condition. The standard of football is as good as you'll see anywhere. And it's a great day out, particularly like you see people bringing kids. It's a bit more relaxed. The kids can kind of roam about as well if they're a bit younger and get bored and want to see the game from the behind the goal instead, and you can move around with them a little bit depending on sort of the crowd size. But all of that combined, it kind of turns into like a great day out. But yeah, we've got clubs that have got really old grounds, and we've got some clubs that have got brand new grounds. So you see all sorts.
All these clubs are turning to Astro pitches now and having like all these rolled out carpets so they can play like City and move the ball around, and I can't really get my head around it, because I'm one of the, when I think of non-league, I used to be, it's like, long ball and then whatever,
hit the big man.
Hit the big man. But then like when I worked at Ashton United, their Northern Premier League, and their pitch is really nice. The ground is it's open roaming or whatever, but the pitch is really nice. And I was like, wow, this is, when I did volunteering, I was like, my entire misconceptions about non-league have changed, because and the whole fan experience is just a lot better. Like I would want to come and watch this, because and obviously with you guys like selling merchandise, for example, as part of the event, the overall experience, I guess it's just about different ways that you can tap into a fan's day out, but not change it too much. They feel like they have to do something different.
That's something I've been really mindful of as we started to gain a little bit more traction in what we do, and we sort of started to move out of non-league into the EFL as well. And you could see like resistance from some fans, at every level. Why do we need to buy a ticket? I want to decide on the day. And like, you absolutely, if you've got the capacity as a club, people have got the right to decide on the day. Obviously, from the club's point of view, they want to know how many people are coming. It benefits them. But at the same time, I've always been very mindful that like what we do and definitely our technology shouldn't get in the way. So if you start to force people to do things, that's when I don't always agree with that. I think you can incentivize people to do things, and I think naturally people will gravitate towards things. But when you go quite aggressive, and we've had some clubs take that approach, and you understand what they're doing, but you also think, it's not my place to say. But if I was going to do it, I would maybe not be as aggressive sometimes, because it's how you get people's backs up a little bit as well.
No, it's good. I mean, what's your goal for long term?
Get into the Premier League. Internationals, like as high as we can go. That's always been the plan from day one. If I could be involved in something where we've built a system from absolutely nothing to one day ticketing a match in the Premier League and an international or a tournament, I'll be happy. That's. I was working out the other day. I think I've sold a ticket at every level of football apart from the Championship. So short term, very good. That's what I've got to do.
So I mean, actually, what happens if a team that you work with gets promoted to the Championship? Then technically,
we're done.
You've done it. Does it actually change? Have you had any teams that have got promoted or relegated?
Yeah, every year. We have teams going up and down all the time.
Does it change your approach or the way that you work with the club?
We tend to find that I guess not so much how we work, but the communication. It's a lot more consultative. So like things like pricing is obviously a debate, whichever way you go. When you go on sale with season tickets, you want to be quite strategic. If there's a chance you're going down, you either need to get in there early whilst there's still some hope,
yeah,
or you need to let everyone get over it and then come back a little bit later when everyone's optimistic for the new season. So there's those kinds of conversations that you sort of tend to have, and then I think going the other way, it tends to be. I think when clubs go up, it's almost like, in a lot of cases, they're not quite prepared for what that step up means. And that's not necessarily always from a ticketing point of view. It could be just like, more people in the ground. Yeah. It could be the cost of travelling to away games if you've come from maybe in the non-league, more regional leagues to a national league where, you've now got to do overnight stays and coach travel costs you the earth because you're doing long distances. Obviously then bigger away attendances. So there's all sorts of things like that clubs have to consider. But generally, we'll be a bit more hands-on and there to help for just basically throw stuff at us if you need to, because we want you to be successful. That's the aim of our game. So the things that we can do to help, then we're kind of there to support.
So you're now planning ahead for the 25-26 tape season, looking at where the teams are in the league and thinking, okay, you might be in a bit of trouble, or you guys are doing quite well. And
exactly that. We're sort of looking at the first thing for us is like the non-league playoffs. So that's coming up soon. That's can be, depending on how many teams you've got involved, can be quite a brutal time. I
was going to say that must be quite.
So last year,
challenge.
I think we had, off the top of my head, 19 teams involved across all of non-league in promotion playoffs. I think we had in 1 week 25 different on sales. So where they put tickets on sale, just the season tickets, then general, and so it was literally multiple times a day. With I quite like it because there's a bit of a buzz about it. It's quite reactive. Depending on who wins their semi-final tonight, they're going on sale tomorrow. But if they don't, they're doing this. They're going to go with season tickets instead. And, you kind of need to be ready for that. I love all that stuff. That's kind of it's when you get to actually do proper ticketing.
Exactly.
So we're preparing for that now. We don't have any EFL teams in playoff places, I don't think. So I mean, I've only ever done one EFL playoff with Carlisle going up into League One.
Oh wow!
So we did about 15,000 for their playoff at Wembley
in
Stockport. That was again a thrilling but also just
demanding job,
demanding experience. Because you just sort of looking at that volume and think, we're doing Wembley, this is great. But it's nerves as well. You just sort of everything.
Thankfully, you had those England experiences before to kind of, I guess, know how it works a little bit with cup finals, because that's different, especially playoffs. Everyone wants to go to the playoff final. I mean,
such a huge game. When
Swindon were close, we were close a few seasons back when I was in Manchester. We all kind of planned we didn't go to many of the games because we were just around the country, but we were like, if we get to the playoff final, as soon as the tickets come out, we're getting tickets and we're going to Wembley. And we were all so set on that. And so I can imagine that must be times 5,000 when it comes to everyone's doing the same thing. If they get to the final, we're going to go and watch.
And it's the thing that's quite tough is it's such a short turnaround as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got that semi-final, and then you generally want to get on sale the next day because you've probably got a week to get what you need to get done. So I mean that was the case with us with the Carlisle playoff where the semi-final happened. At one point it looks like we're going out, then maybe we're back. It went to extra time and it was all good. But rather than sort of time for everyone to celebrate, it's the plan is you've already got the plan basically, but now it's time to execute. So going on sale tomorrow morning, this time, this group of people, be ready.
I think once you eventually get to the Champions League stage, you're going to have to think about the turnaround now, because obviously they've changed the format, haven't they?
Yes,
It's
I quite like it this year.
It's good.
I've got no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's just it's new and it's different.
Yeah.
I quite like it.
It's quite good, but so like at City, I don't know. I don't even know how it works. Like the final group game's finished, and then
This little playoff.
and then we had like this little playoff round, but it was like a week's turnover.
Yeah.
So I completely missed the inbox because I was like surprised. It was like, we've got a quick turnaround. There's a game next week against Real Madrid. Like, can everyone work? And I was like, surely not next week. They've just finished like qualifying, and I was like, oh yeah. So, and then they even sold out. Real Madrid sold like 2,000 less tickets because even they couldn't. They couldn't arrange. They couldn't turn it around quick enough. They couldn't get people over in time. And so I was like this must have been. I'm just a steward, by the way, and that's not even that bad. But imagine like doing the tickets because suddenly so many tickets and people couldn't go just because the turnaround was like that. So I can't imagine the ticket offices in that process of like, oh my god, we have no time to.
Yeah, there would have probably been a bit of late night work. And it's one of those where you have to prepare for the possibility. And then depending on how superstitious you are, you do get some that will say, oh, no, we're not going to talk about it until we're there. Like, that's your first mistake, because then it really is just going to be like, it's going to be unbearable. So I'm always of the opinion, like, just be prepared, have a plan, and you might need it or you might not. But,
exactly.
You know, you've got to give yourself the best possible chance.
Yeah. Well, I think that's honestly the perfect place to end. Where can people find you if they want to reach out or they want to get in contact with you? What's the best way?
So our company website is kaizenticketing.com. I'm on LinkedIn as like social media platform of choice. I'm on there a fair bit. So David Lynam, if you search me, I'm sure you'll find me. That's it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much to everyone for listening.
Thank you.
We've had a good one, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
Cheers.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was really good.
Awesome.
Did you enjoy it?
I had a great time.
Yeah, that was brilliant. That was probably my favourite one I've done so far.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, that was really good. Thank you so much.
Good.
I didn't even know, because you're right, like ticketing, you buy tickets, but I didn't really know the business of it really, because I've never looked into it, but it's so big.
It's one of those things, it just, in most cases at least, it just works.
Yeah.
So it's almost so boring, really.
Yeah.
Like, no one would ever look at it and go, you know what, I see an opportunity.
Yeah.
Just like, we just get a ticket, didn't you?
Yeah.
But that's a sign that you're doing really well. Because I always say to our team, if no one's talking about us, you are absolutely smashing it.
Doing the right thing.
As soon as people are talking about, like, if our name is involved on like any fans forums or on social media, like, that means we fucked up somewhere.
Yeah.
Because particularly the nature of what we do, it's a white label product, so we don't put ourselves front and center. It's about the club.
Yeah.
So if you do that and people are talking about us,
it's not good.
We're distracting from what it should be about.
Yeah.
And so I always think, like, if no one's talking about you, you're doing great. And if your match days are pretty dull,
good,
bit non-eventful,
yeah, fantastic,
absolutely doing the job.
Yeah.